I was warned by the organizers I should try and make this interactive. I don't know how to do that because I have a written speech. I will try to make it as interactive as possible. As the moderator read the presentation, I wondered whether it's me, because you know in Kenya right now, when you speak about election and IT, you elicit emotions. Nonetheless, that's my past. Today, I'm here to speak about IT and cybersecurity. I'm very pleased and I'm happy that the organizers chose Kenya as the place to have this conversation. I do hope those who are coming here for the first time will enjoy our hospitality. And I've interacted with some of you at different times. And I am sure by the time you conclude this summit conference, you will come up with new ideas in terms of how to improve the cyberspace. I will start. Please excuse me, I will read the speech nonetheless. I will pause where I can and interact with, just give antidotes where I can. Globally, the regulatory environment on the project of personal data is far from ideal. We know people have been collecting a lot of personal information across the globe. Of course, this is compounded with the fact that some countries do not have any legislation on data protection. In other places, various pieces of legislation are incompatible with each other, and hence creating a loophole on how to enforce them. This you will find in our Data Protection Strategic Plan 2020-2022 on page 3. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Africa is rising. Let's say that. Africa is, and technology has its footprint in the growth of the Africa economy. We know today we keep talking about a free market across Africa. The digital transformation of all sectors of the continent economy, from telecommunication, healthcare, transport, education, financial services, hospitality, all embrace innovation and digital solutions. These digital tools and technologies need to operate within a regulatory environment that safeguards the privacy and dignity of individuals. At the core of this, there is need to address the risks and threats that come with the moving into digital space. I am glad that this summit seeks to discuss matters on securing information that entities hold in the best interest of parties involved. Privacy is a multifaceted concept that is currently being challenged by rapid development in science and technology. Technological innovation in our personal life activities and information privacy is becoming more complex by the day as more and more data is being collected, transferred, exchanged, analyzed for the positive and negative reasons. These advancements in technology have brought with them a new set of risks that provoke misuse of personal data, such as identity theft, socio-economic exclusion, discrimination, stigmatization, cybercrime, social media trolls, just to mention but a few. Any one of you here today can give an example of people who have been trolled online, and in some cases we've even lost life. Just earlier, during the short break, we were discussing about children who've taken their own life because of trolls online. And I'm sure in this summit, those are some of the conversation you'll be having. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights recognizes the right to privacy as a basic human right under Article 12, and it states, no one shall be subjected to arbitral interference with his privacy, family, home, or correspondence, nor attacked upon his or her reputation. Everyone has a right to be protected of the law against interfering of attack. Under the European Convention on Human Rights, it espouses this right also. At a regional level, in 2014, the Convention on Cyber and Personal Data Protection called for member states to commit to the establishment of legal framework so as to strengthen the fundamental right and public freedom. I don't know how many countries are represented here. How many countries do we have? 10, 5, 20? Well, ladies and gentlemen, the right of digital enables markets in Africa means that more customers are being asked to give access to their personal information, including their biometric. I'm sure if it looks like a joke, but every time some of us have to turn on our phone, we use our facial recognition, isn't it? Is that biometrics? Well, financial status, the demographics. Of course, people in marketing, they like to analyze which demographic markets, which is our target market. Geolocation, of course, that we share a lot, especially when we use Uber or Bolt. We give them our addresses in terms of our location. And of course, this we actually are oblivious of the risk involved in sharing this information and the consequences should the information fall in the wrong hands. As a result, the regulations governing the protection of personal data are becoming increasingly important. Businesses in Africa expand exponentially to effectively conduct businesses. Organizations need to understand that the African personal data protection regulation landscape, non-compliance with the data protection legislation in Africa may potentially impede multinational organizations from pursuing business interests in Africa. Therefore, African countries need to embrace a culture of data protection and thus the importance to understand the different approaches to establish compatible framework at a national, regional, international level so as to facilitate the fast-growing international trade online commerce. Ladies and gentlemen, in addition, the adoption of a core set of principles that seem to apply to majority of national data protection laws and in region and global initiative could help establish compatible legislations and give some room in domestic implementation. Some of these core principles that are worth considering are as followed. The need for lawful basis when processing data, obtaining the consent or some of other jurisdiction designed to acknowledge competence, private and public interest. Consider the principles of data protection, the obligation and the quality, that is the accuracy, completeness, and keeping the information up to date. Privacy by design by default, the data security, whether it's physical or logical and institutional measures to protect against deliberate acts of misuse as well as accidental loss of destruction of data. The right of the data subjects are also paramount. In Africa, Before 2016, we only had 16 of the 55 nations that had adopted data protection. However, as at August 2020, the number rose to 31 countries. In Kenya, ladies and gentlemen, the legislation on data protection was adopted in 2019. And of course, it is supposed to help us implement under Article 31C on the privacy of an individual. There are regulations provided for, and the office is domiciled at the Ministry, the domicile at the Ministry of ICT and Innovation. The Act provides that the office shall act independently in carrying out its function. The office is expected to coordinate and ensure that all issues to do with data protection are actually undertaken in the country. And the Data Protection Act, the Commissioner is empowered to issue guidelines and codes of practice for data controllers and data processors, and as well as data protection officers. In Kenya also, we have the Data Protection Regulations 2021. There is one which is on general regulation. There is one on data on handling of procedures and enforcement. There is also one on registration. The one on registration comes into force on 14th of July, which is 2 weeks from now. Ladies and gentlemen, African countries recognize the need to protect personal data and promote free flow of such personal data. Taking global digitalization and trade into account, however, some of the setbacks facing data privacy and personal data are: one, lack of any legislation. Two, with the emergence of new technology and increased reliance on technology, cloud computing solution, questions often arise about the jurisdiction in specific cases with such lack of clarity, creating ambiguity for individuals, customers, and businesses, restricting the scope of cross-border data exchange, data exchange. We've seen this is one of the concerns that has been raised often. And of course, finally, the lack of political goodwill. Ladies and gentlemen, I know this has, as I conclude, data protection requires concerted effort which must involve harmonization of new or existing legislation. These laws must have an international setting and applicability to all states regardless of whether a country is developed or not. Because you'll agree with me, you could be a customer or a data subject in Kenya, but the company could be multinational, based in a different part of the globe, and the information is being processed in a third country. And if you look at that scenario, it means that across the globe, we have to look for a way of making sure we harmonize the existing legislation. These laws must have an international setting and applicability to all states, regardless of whether a country is developed or not. Conflict or no law of laws can hamper the fight against illegal data access and cyber security. To achieve this, in this summit, I would urge you to consider the following: implementation of sector-specific data privacy and data protection laws across the African continent to combat personal data that continue to move across borders and also match the fast-rising number of foreign entities conducting businesses in Africa. Two, fast-track the implementation of data protection laws to enhance protection of data subject rights by having control over data processors who process personal data of citizens, both within and outside the continent. Three, encourage stakeholders such as internet service providers, gender justice advocates, children rights advocates, the business sector, consumers, protection institution, political parties, electoral management bodies, lawmakers, national human rights institutions, the judiciary, law enforcement agencies, policymakers, and data protection authority to actively promote data protection through various ways that are applicable to their work. And finally, all states to ensure that all legislations meant to address challenges encountered in the digital sphere, such as cyber security, and promote the respect for law and the respect for the right to privacy. I thank you for your attention. I hope I have not sent some of you to sleep. It's an early morning, and thank you very much. I wish you very fruitful deliberation.
I think you did the opposite of sleep, because before you started, someone was asking me, where is the commissioner? Where is she? Where is she? Now, just as you're standing there, I'm sure that there is somebody who might have a question. And you see, already there's a hand. So sleep is the opposite. Can I get a microphone, please? There's one question here. Thank you, my brother. And of course, don't forget to mention your name. It's all about data protection that we're talking about this morning. Thank you so much, Ms. Immaculate, for that particular presentation. Very powerful indeed. Mention your name and ask a question. Yes.
My name is Jackson Kuria, and thank you, Immaculate, for that presentation. My question is, the cruises this country, Kenya, has come maybe to making use of personal data was in the infamous Huduma number. That consolidation, then there seems to be lack of synchrony between government departments in terms of, and the private sector in what the use of data can be and how helpful data can be, especially in database decision, database policies and registration. And now, from your office where you're looking at data protection, I think where do you then balance between protection and controlled use so that the private sector and any other person can use data to make decision, but yet balance with protection?
Thank you, Jackson, for the question. Indeed, you're very right that today's world, the most important thing, perhaps more than gold, you'd say, is actually data. It's what drives businesses, for sure. And the government, of course, holds a lot of information. And the idea around the Huduma was one source of truth. Still remains important. I didn't get an opportunity to explain where we are coming from, because if I was able to draw back why data protection is, in 2019, His Excellency launched Digital Economic Blueprint, and it had 5 pillars. And even today, just 2 months ago, those of you who had an opportunity to attend the Connect Summit, which was hosted by ICT Authority, which is an annual event, they have launched what we call a 10-year master plan. Across what is one of the fundamentals for e-commerce is actually data. And the reason why this office was created. This office is supposed to help you in terms of compliance, create that balance. And our work is to, one, create awareness, so that as you enter into the space of business, the centrality of the customer interest informs how you design, even as you collect that information. Please remember, under the Data Protection Act, there are exemptions. And one of them is for scientific reasons and journalistic purposes. If you're using data to help you inform your trends, and it's just for statistics, that is something that is exempt. Data remains one of our core source for growth. However, as we do our businesses, we have to humanize. Data protection is here to humanize business, so that we are no longer looking at our customers as objects. because they have a life. We have given you the examples of the flip side of lack of that balance. Trolling, we've seen people commit suicide, identity theft, and also discrimination. So you as a business need to begin asking yourself every time you want to embark into any area, how do we protect the consumer? That is the conversation. How do we protect the consumer is what the data protection is here for. Look at the principles so that they are not just commodities. When we design a process, how we collect, how we process, how we store, how we dispose, the centrality is the humanityness. That's the balance. Data is a great resource, but let's humanize the data subject. That's the balance we are asking. And I'm sure in another 2 to 3 years in this country and across Africa, we'll have those solutions. Right now, some have started, but if you have hackathons, you will find the solution on how to protect. Because why have all the information if on the other side you're exposing people's lives? So this office is here to help you reach that balance. Thank you.
Looks lovely. You remember our thing? Keep on doing it. Keep on doing that. Keep on doing that. Asante sana. Thank you, Ms. Immaculate. Asante sana. All right. Asante.